They wheeled in the champagne like we'd just cured cancer. Confetti cannons, branded cake pops. The CFO wiping away tears like he just sold a kidney for charity. Maybe his stock options hit. I stood there, plastic flute in hand, smiles stapled on like a sales rep's LinkedIn photo, while our baby, the product we'd built in garages, co-working spaces, and blackout weekends, got swallowed whole by a $312 million acquisition. Everyone clapped. I tried not to scream. The new CEO, a man who looked like he ironed his empathy face every morning, slung an arm around me like we were frat brothers, called me the architect behind the magic, then mispronounced our product's name twice, and handed me a branded quarter-zip fleece like I'd just been hazed into his cult. "Excited to have you on board for the next chapter," he said. I nodded and made a mental note to start printing things. Important things. Here's what they didn't understand. The founding team wasn't just symbolic. We weren't hoodied mascots trotted out for TechCrunch puff pieces. We were the damn skeleton, nervous system, and soul of the operation. The weirdos who knew that a 12-millisecond sleep in one legacy script kept the notification engine from eating itself alive. Sure, they bought the castle, but we were the moat, the map, and the master key. And tucked away in the footnotes of the acquisition paperwork, hidden between non-compete clauses and retention bonus promises, was one line, one clause, a ticking bomb. If any founder is terminated without cause within 4 months of acquisition, all proprietary IP shall revert to the founding entity, effective immediately. It was born out of 2 bottles of Pinot Noir, a war-weary lawyer named Andrea, and me, bleary-eyed at 2:00 a.m., fighting for the soul of what we'd created. I wasn't betting on betrayal. I was betting on negligence. Turns out, I got both. This might not be the place to ask, but if you've listened this far, please, help me hit 10,000 subscribers. 97% of people just listen and never click. That's like showing up to a potluck with an empty plate and eating all the damn mac and cheese. One tap. That's all it takes to keep this chaos machine running. Anyway, the press release read like wedding vows. Together, we'll reach new heights. Shared vision, unparalleled synergy. Reality? 14-hour onboarding calls where a consultant in a blazer explained how to run our own company back to us, bullet point by bullet point. They called it integration. We called it death by PowerPoint. But I smiled through it. Let them rename our Slack channels. Let them talk. They assigned me a knowledge capture specialist to shadow me, like my brain was a PDF waiting to be exported. But I knew. I knew how many months we had. I knew the clause. I knew they'd never read it. It was buried so deep in the appendices you'd need a mining license to find it. They thought they were buying a product. They didn't realize they were yanking the pin from a grenade. The consultants arrived like a beige infestation. 3 of them at first, all flown in from Manhattan. Names that sounded like expired prescription drugs. Camden, Wessler, Tehran. They didn't build things. They realigned operational frameworks. In English? That meant turning gut instinct into KPIs and replacing functional systems with slide decks. Their first initiative? Vision realignment. 2 weeks of forced trust falls. Branded notebooks and inspirational quotes about agility from people who had never shipped a product. One slide had a lighthouse with the phrase, "Innovation anchored in execution," pasted over it like a dentist office poster. By week 3, our whiteboards were gone. In their place? Collaboration zones with beanbags no one sat in. They issued us all new laptops, preloaded with Focus software that tracked keystrokes and flagged idle time. Because, obviously, you can measure creative problem-solving in words per minute. They didn't ask how we had built a self-healing schema or a cross-instance failover system from scratch. They cared about dashboards, and dashboards loved velocity metrics. Then came the layers. Middle managers with titles like Innovation Sherpa and Strategic Enablement Partner. I suddenly had a boss. His name was Logan. He wore loafers with no socks and once called me kiddo during a product roadmap review. I'm 43. I wrote the code he fumbled through while misexplaining it to an investor. They started isolating us, one founder at a time. Mia, who had once presented our compression framework at DEF CON, got reassigned to user empathy research. Translation, she made fake customer personas and watched interns role-play interviews. Ben, our CTO, was forced to justify every Git commit via a Jira flow so bloated he needed 45 minutes just to describe a 2-line bug fix. Me? I became the mascot. They trotted me into investor pitches and product demos, but never let me speak. Sloan, the consultant who thought he invented feedback, would say things like, "Let the numbers speak for themselves," as he misattributed our Q2 growth to a marketing campaign that flopped halfway through. What actually happened? We pulled off a 2-region server migration during Memorial Day weekend while everyone else was at a barbecue. I stopped arguing. Somewhere around week 6, let them talk. Let them rename our roadmap the success spiral. Let them believe they were driving. Because the thing about fools is, they walk right into their own traps if you just stop warning them. Every suggestion they ignored, I logged it. Every Slack message they skipped me on, archived. Every meeting where they forgot to invite engineering leadership, documented. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I waited. I had 16 months and change. The countdown was already ticking. Then it happened. Tuesday, mid-morning. Mia and I were reviewing patch logs when her calendar went blank. A minute later, her Slack icon went gray. Final logout gray. She walked back in 10 minutes later, envelope in hand, eyes like broken glass. No HR, no manager, just a security guy 6 feet behind me, she whispered, voice hollow. Said I was redundant. Redundant. She built the compression engine we still licensed to half of Southeast Asia. Her severance packet was 6 pages. One was a 14-point non-disparagement clause. Another warned her not to access company resources as if she might grab a fire axe and go full diehard. She didn't cry. Mia doesn't cry. She just looked around, at the space she'd helped wire, debug, and bless with years of takeout boxes and missed birthdays, and said, "Guess I'm the first." And that's when it hit me. The clause. The one no one read. It didn't just activate on my firing. It triggered the moment any founder was terminated without cause. Mia was out. That was one of 3 keys turned. I didn't sprint to legal. Didn't call Andrea, our lawyer. Didn't stand up and shout, "You just triggered your own execution clause." I just shut my laptop, reached under my desk, and pulled out the matte black external drive I hadn't touched in over a year. Dusty, password protected, locked tight like Fort Knox. I didn't steal a single line of code, not one semicolon. What I copied were things that version control doesn't capture. Board meeting emails, early architecture diagrams signed by me, Slack messages between me, Ben, and Mia documenting critical build decisions. Proof. Not courtroom evidence, though it could be. This was public proof, the kind you leak if they ever try to scrub you from history. I encrypted it, labeled the folder, for after, tripled the backups, distributed to dead man switches just in case. Then I sat back in my chair and stared at the empty seat Mia had occupied just an hour ago. It still spun slightly from where she'd stood. I didn't feel grief. I felt protective of her, of what we'd built, of the version of me who'd slept in the office on a rollout night and ghosted a boyfriend because the sync queue failed at midnight. This wasn't heartbreak. This was a breath drawn in the quiet before movement. They thought they could remove us 1 gear at a time, but they didn't understand. Some machines break worse when you take out just one part. Then came Bryce. New hire, product lead, age 27. Resume, Stanford MBA. Energy, PowerPoint deck that learned to walk. He introduced himself with a handshake like he was collecting your vote. So excited to absorb your knowledge, he said, flashing a shark smile. I'll be heading up product from now on. Let's make some magic. I didn't blink. I just thought, they replaced me with a man who uses synergy as a verb. Within a week, I was scrubbed from roadmap meetings. No notification. Just no invites. I found out the back end had been restructured when our client dashboard started throwing 503 errors during a live demo. They never asked me to review. Never even ran it through staging. They pushed changes straight to prod like toddlers joyriding a forklift. Feature flags flipped at random. A/B tests launched with broken segmentation. One rollout somehow reverted to a 2019 build and deleted a client's analytics history in the process. Support started forwarding those emails to me, because despite being sidelined, I was still the only person who knew how the back end actually worked. Bryce blamed legacy spaghetti. He called it technical debt from the old guard. Old guard. That was the new insult. I saw it crop up in Slack threads. We're modernizing. Not everyone's keeping up. Time to stop worshipping sacred cows. Sacred cows. That's what they called our architecture now, the exact stack that kept their product alive. Ben tried to push back. He brought up a critical bug in the new user tracking module, something about overridden sessions causing permission leaks. But Bryce cut him off with a smirk. Thanks for the history lesson, he said. But we're moving forward. I didn't correct him. Didn't mention the exact commit that introduced the regression. Didn't point out that his refactor broke our single sign-on model for 3 enterprise clients. I just wrote it all down. Date, time, bug ID, meeting link. Every bypass of protocol I logged. Every failure I screenshotted. Every gaslighting reply to a concerned customer I archived. Cold anger is cleaner than rage. It doesn't burn. It sharpens. It waits. You watch them flail, then whisper. You did this to yourself. They wanted me in the background? Fine. Enjoy the spotlight. Enjoy the bugs, the churn, the panicked dashboards. I'd become the intern again, the quiet one with the notepad. But every smile I gave them, that was a knife they didn't know they'd handed me. They thought they were untouchable. They called it a realignment of strategic direction. That's what the email said. No meeting, no phone call, no voice to deliver the news. Just a calendar invite, offboarding touchpoint. Dropped into my inbox at 7:04 a.m., like a dead bird on the doorstep. I showed up. The room was already prepped, like I was walking into a dental appointment, not a legacy decapitation. Laptop open. Printed forms. Branded water bottle like a parting gift from a startup cult. No Bryce. Of course. Instead, a soft-voiced HR rep I'd never seen before. Jamie? Janine? Didn't matter. She kept repeating words like transition and gratitude for your leadership, like she was eulogizing a pet hamster. No one mentioned the bugs. No one brought up the catastrophic client call from last Friday, where the API silently lost 2/3 of the order confirmations in real time. Just restructuring. Just business. Just rot dressed up as growth. They slid the paperwork across the table like it was a dinner check. I read every line, not because I didn't already know what it said, but because I wanted them to watch me read it. Slow, calm. Pen tapping once for every lie I'd been fed. Then I signed. One smooth stroke, smiled so wide I heard her inhale. This won't be the last you hear from me, I said. It wasn't a threat. It was a courtesy, and I meant it. No security guard, no escort, no last-minute theatrics. Just silence, cold and clinical. My keycard still worked when I tapped it at the front door. I stood in the lobby for a moment, let it sink in. The logo on the wall, chrome, backlit, proud. I stared right at it. Day one, I whispered. Because that's exactly what it was. Mia had gone first. I was second. Ben's NDA was due for renegotiation in 2 weeks, and he wasn't exactly subtle about his disgust anymore. But that didn't matter now. Because with my exit, the clause was no longer hypothetical. It was live, triggered, ironclad. If any founder is terminated without cause within 24 months of acquisition, all proprietary IP shall revert to the founding entity, effective immediately. 16 months and 2 days. That's how long it took them to shoot themselves in the foot. I walked out with nothing but a backpack, a thin stack of papers, and a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Because my eyes weren't sad. They were calculating. Let the countdown begin. At first, everything looked fine from the outside. They were still posting on LinkedIn, team selfies, new client wins, hashtags like #InnovationInMotion. Bryce even gave a talk at some tech brunch titled Scaling with Speed, bragged about removing legacy friction like we were barnacles on the hull of his luxury yacht. I watched the live stream from my kitchen table, coffee in hand, cat in lap, no login needed, just publicly available hubris. They updated code, pushed a slick new UI, onboarded 2 enterprise clients, and demoed real-time integration before QA had signed off. It crashed. Twice. But the real unraveling came quietly. A small glitch, an API key that deactivated without warning. Then webhooks began timing out mysteriously. A logistics partner emailed in all caps. "Are your shipments sinking? Is your system down?" Support replied, "Temporary issue, DNS hiccup. Try clearing cache." But the glitches multiplied like mold. One retailer's data backfilled to 2021. Another client's purchase history vanished altogether. The internal safeguards, the very scripts built to detect and resolve these errors, had been disabled. During one of Bryce's agility sprints. By week 3, help desk tickets had tripled, then quadrupled. Internal Slack threads lit up like wildfire. Anyone have access to schema backups? Why are tokens failing across environments? Why aren't staging keys provisioning anymore? I could have answered, but I didn't. Because those keys? They weren't theirs anymore. The clause didn't just revert the code. It reverted the infrastructure, the source code, the authentication framework, the core schemas, the ownership of the very stack their entire system ran on. Legally, it belonged to us again. They'd been calling functions built on borrowed time, structures that no longer legally belonged to them. I watched in silence. No dramatic press conference, no courtroom takedown. Just strategic quiet. Ben sent me a one-line message the day their status page went yellow. They're still digging. Just realized the shovel's missing. Middle managers scrambled. Emergency sinks. Fires they didn't understand how to put out. I knew the signs, the nervous emoji reactions, the 10:42 p.m. emails, the vague Jira comments with reassess impact or circle back on edge case X. But here's the catch. It's hard to fix something you never built. Harder still when the thing you broke was never legally yours. I didn't leak the clause, didn't send it to reporters, didn't even bring it up in investor circles. Because the best kind of revenge is patience. Let them push hotfixes. Let them fire off bug reports. Let them flounder in the architecture they thought was theirs. But then, someone did leak something. Not the clause. Not yet. Just a screenshot. It showed a panicked Slack exchange in the HAD Ops escalation channel. Does anyone know why the staging keys aren't provisioning? We can't access the backup schema. Who is responsible for the offboarding protocols? And then the line that cracked everything open. Can someone confirm if legal updated the rights to the API layer? That thread went viral. Someone, an intern, maybe a rogue developer, leaked it anonymously to Blind. It spread like wildfire. Anonymous employees chimed in, finger-pointing, conspiracy theories. One poor soul even suggested that we, the founders, had hexed the system on our way out. It wasn't a hex. It was a contract. By day 3 of the outage, a lawyer finally reread the acquisition documents. Not a new hire. One of the original lawyers. The kind who thinks fine print is just garnish around the real meal. She found it buried in the third appendix, page 58, under a section titled Contingency Triggers. In the event that any original founder is terminated without cause within the 24-month retention period, all rights to proprietary source code, infrastructure, authentication architecture, data schemas, and derivative works shall immediately revert to the founding entity as defined in Clause 3.7a. Immediately. No grace period. No negotiation. No takebacks. I like to imagine the CEO's face, Logan, Mr. Empathy in a fleece vest, reading that clause with his mouth slowly falling open, $1 million oversight unraveling in real time. Their legal team scrambled. I know this because emails started popping up in my old founder inbox, the one they hadn't shut off yet. Subject lines like, hoping to reconnect, quick chat, seeking clarity on transition options. Open to a temporary licensing arrangement? They tried to sound calm, but I could smell the panic under every just touching base, and quick check-in. I didn't answer. They called. It went straight to voicemail, a recording I'd set up months ago. If you're calling about something you broke, try reading the terms you ignored. They should have checked the entity name. We weren't just the LLC from 2013 anymore. 2 months before they fired Mia, I'd registered a new company in Delaware. Clean, quiet, new domain, new cap table, same soul. Andrea handled the filings. Mia and Ben were listed as co-founders. They couldn't reach us now, because we weren't coming back. They hadn't just lost the code. They'd lost the trust of every vendor, every client, every partner who now realized the shiny new regime didn't own what they'd been selling. Justice doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it's just a signature on page 58. By the time TechCrunch ran the headline, Platform Meltdown After Founders Fired, IP Clause Triggers Collapse, they were already on their 4th outage in 6 weeks. We didn't rebuild the old platform. We reforged it, tore it down to parts, threw out every Frankenstein patch that corporate had slapped on, and rebuilt the engine to hum instead of grind. No stakeholders, no OKRs, no sprint velocity burn-down optimization synergies. Just clean code, real users, and a product that didn't need a committee to breathe. At first, it was just the 3 of us. Me, Mia, and Ben. Working from Ben's garage with folding chairs, Ethernet cables taped to the ceiling, and espresso strong enough to punch a hole in drywall. Later, we moved into a modest loft above a coffee roastery. It smelled like ambition and burnt beans. Mia handled product relaunch. Ben wrangled infrastructure and support. I focused on architecture and the roadmap. The rhythm came back. Late nights, ramen-fueled sprints. The kind of exhausted laughter that only happens when you're building something that actually matters. We didn't advertise, didn't poach clients, didn't name names. But word got out. Clients who saw the smoke started looking for exits. First, cautious DMs. Then whispers from procurement leads. Then emails like, "Hey, just wondering if you're working on anything new?" We've had 3 integration failures this month. Looking for something more stable. Do you support legacy workflows? Asking for a team? We didn't pitch. We answered. Yes, we're building something better. Yes, it's stable. Yes, we can onboard you by the end of the month. Some of the old team found their way back too. Engineers, designers, customer support leads. The ones who remembered the early days, who still believed in what we'd built the first time. They didn't ask for titles. They asked where they could help. We called the new platform Lantern, as in, a light in the dark, a nod to everything we'd survived and everything we were chasing now. Every line of code was a refusal, every feature, a correction. We launched in beta with 11 clients. Month 2, we had 34. Then the investors started calling, this time on our terms. I did one podcast interview that spring. The host asked about the transition, the acquisition, the firings, the comeback. I smiled and said, sometimes disruption isn't about breaking things. It's about watching what breaks when you leave. No names, no shade. Just facts with fangs. We weren't out for revenge. That part was done. This was resurrection, a rebirth by contract, powered by a clause no one thought would matter. The final straw came on a Thursday. Prime login hours. Finance dashboards froze. Order APIs crashed. Client integrations blinked out. No warning, just silence. Twitter lit up within the hour. Anyone else seeing a total failure on Redacted? We just lost 8 hours of transactional data. Support won't respond. Is the company dead? Their status page, a grid that was always pristine and useless, was now a sea of red blocks. Every system, every region, down. 2 hours later, their official response. We are investigating a critical disruption affecting core systems. Translation? We don't know who owns the thing we broke anymore. Internally? Total chaos. Executives yanked into emergency Zoom calls. Engineers scrambling to recompile a system they no longer had legal rights to access. The license keys that used to renew automatically? Revoked. The infrastructure stack they'd taken for granted? Gone. No backups, no rollbacks, no plan. Clients didn't just leave, they ran. Some sent quiet emails, others posted very public statements. One logistics partner put it bluntly. We no longer believe the vendor has operational control of its own platform. Then came the blow that shattered what was left. A journalist at Wired published the headline that sent their stock price into freefall. Fortune 500 firm loses core platform after firing founders, IP clause overlooked. The article was surgical. It quoted clause 3.7a word for word, mapped every mistake, every oversight, every red flag ignored. They interviewed ex-employees, clients, even an anonymous board member who admitted on record, we never thought the clause would activate. We didn't understand what it meant. By market close, their IPO filing was pulled. 3 board members resigned within 48 hours. Investors demanded audits. The CEO, Logan, got shredded live on CNBC. The anchor asked, so, did anyone actually read the acquisition documents? Logan stammered about legal ambiguity and unexpected founder action. Unexpected, like we were a rogue storm system. I watched it all unfold from my new office. Sunlight, pale wood floors, a fern I kept forgetting to water. The TV volume was low. Logan's segment ended. The anchor moved on. I didn't toast, didn't throw a party, didn't laugh. I just sipped my coffee and let the silence stretch. Because this wasn't victory. This was inevitability. They thought they were buying us. What they really bought was our comeback.